Hello, and welcome to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I am so glad you are here with me. My name is Carrie Dahle, and I am your host. I am an entrepreneur, author, podcaster, manifester, and motivator. And I am on a mission to empower you to create the life of your dreams. If you are looking to up-level your life, relationships, finances, productivity, and success, you have come to the right place. I will share with you tools, resources, strategies, my failures, and my successes that have all helped me achieve the life of my dreams. It is my goal with this podcast to help you see your potential and empower you to create the life of your dreams. So let's get to it. Well, welcome back to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I'm Carrie Dahle, your host, and today I'm going to continue on with our series of Sacred Spaces in Volume 3 and the authors that are being featured in this book. Today, I have Jake Bushman, who is the creator and host of the podcast Journey with Jake, where adventure meets inspiration. But what I find most interesting is actually his journey to how he became a podcaster. Welcome, Jake.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, this is fun to be here. It's good to talk to you.
Thanks. Well, I believe that stories connect us, and I think that a story is a very powerful tool. I don't want you to share the story that you shared in the book because I want people to read it. But is there a way that maybe you can tell people how you got here without sharing that exact story?
Yeah, I think it's similar to your story, and I won't give your story away either because I read your story. But your story had a lot to do with kind of being in between things. And I think for me, that's kind of what happened. I didn't even really know what podcasts were. I never really listened to them. And I had some coworkers who listened to them all the time and they were telling me about podcasts. In my mind, I'm thinking, podcasts? I mean, radio. Like we have the radio, talk shows on radios. That's what a podcast is. It just didn't make sense to me. Like I felt like we were going back in time with podcasts. It was kind of strange to me. So I remember hearing about all that. And then, the big in between thing that happened was COVID-19. And that kind of shifted a lot of things for me and changed things for me. And that's kind of how I got here because I started listening to podcasts. The next thing you know, I'm thinking, I can do it. And so that's kind of how it got me to where I am. And there's a little more involved in that. But that's kind of the way it got me there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fun thing, and it's a strange idea to think about people going back and listening, but I'm the same way, right? I mean, my husband listened to podcasts forever. And then I started dabbling in them. I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. I like this. And then you actually start finding things that resonate with you. It's like reading a book yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I've read a few books that inspired me, a book like Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And then I was like, oh, well, he's got a podcast. And so I started listening to his podcast. And it just all kind of came about. And I thought, the people who are doing podcasts are everyday people.
Yeah.
They're people like you and me. Are celebrities doing it? Sure. There's plenty of celebrities that have their own podcasts, but there's people who are moms and dads and whatever, just, doing it out there. And I love that. I love that about it, that anybody can do it. And that's kind of what inspired me to get involved. And here I am.
Yeah. But you used to be in event planning, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And still am in event planning, but
Okay.
I took a little hiatus there during COVID when no one was going to events. So yeah, I'm in the trade show convention industry. That's kind of what I've done forever. That's all I knew. And I look back now and I'm like, okay, there's no way I would have even had the time to do it. I wasn't in the right place at that time. So this in between time that I had really kind of shifted it for me to where, yeah, I can do it now. And the timing was right. I didn't like it at the time. I hate being in that spot where you're not sure what's going to happen and you're fighting things and you're struggling, but it does help you grow, which is interesting. I kind of related that with your chapter too. You kind of talk a little bit about that. So I appreciate that from you.
Oh, thank you. Well, tell me a little bit more about Journey with Jake, because it sounds like that has grown and changed as well.
It has for sure. So I started off, I thought, okay, what can I talk about that I enjoy? Well, I always enjoyed going on vacations, things like that. I enjoyed traveling, although I haven't traveled extensively, but I thought I want to talk to people about their travels, but I want to talk about like the small things or the little things that mean a lot to them with their travels. So that's kind of how I started. But then I started talking to a few people who maybe have more experiences than just a certain place. Because I thought, okay, I'm going to have to hit certain places is what I need to do. Let's talk about Thailand and why that's important. Let's talk about Iceland and why that's important to you for whatever reason. And then I kind of shifted. I had somebody who went river rafting, and I had someone who went hunting, and I had just different experiences. And I got a runner on, and marathon runners and ultra runners. And I thought it's more than just a place. It's their experience. It's their adventure, and adventure means something different to everybody. So it kind of shifted to adventure, to experiences like that. And now I learn something from every guest I talk to, their growth, how they improved, how they overcame something. And that's what it is. And I love hearing people's stories. I gain so much by listening to people's stories. I always tell my guests before we start, I'm like, don't feel like you're rambling. I can always go back and cut things out or edit things.
Mhm.
I want to hear about you and don't feel like you're rambling. And in a lot of cases, when they kind of get done, they're like, oh, I felt like I rambled there. I'm like, no, you told who you were. And that's what I love. And so that's kind of where it's at now. It's kind of that whole, we call it an adventure podcast, but it's really someone's journey. And that's why the journey with Jake, because it's their journey, and their journey is an adventure, whether they want to admit it or not in some cases. And I think some people think adventure, they think, oh, it's jumping out of airplanes, it's scaling down rock cliffs, it's things like that. And it can be, that might be for somebody, but it can be other simple things as well. It can be, in our case, writing a chapter in a book. That was an adventure for me.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, and that's the thing, right?
Definitely.
It's the story. It's the way that you can connect with others, and words are powerful. Whether it's hearing it or writing it. I mean, it's just it. I think that's what the magic of a podcast is for me, at least, because we all have our different likes and we all have different things that we do, but we all kind of relate, and everyone can see a part of that in your story.
Definitely.
So, was this the first chapter or first book or book project you've been part of?
It was, yeah, it totally was. And I felt a lot of, I don't know if fear is the word, just I was nervous about it just because I had a little bit of imposter syndrome. I look at somebody like you and these other authors, and I'm like, they're writing in this thing. How do I even compete with them? I've never done it. And it wasn't that, so much compete with them. I just felt like, is my story even worth it? And I think doing the book, doing the chapter made me realize that, yeah, it is. It is worth it, whether it's little, big, whoever judges that, and nobody who does. I don't know. It's important. It was important to me. My story was important. And now thinking about it, first too, I thought, okay, I'll tell the story about how I created this podcast. Now I think about it, I go, I have other stories to tell. That's what it made me realize. And so I really appreciate that about this experience.
Yeah. Colleen has a way of bringing people together in this magical way. And yeah, I mean, this book has been outstanding. I've loved volume one and volume two, but this one, and partially because we're part of it, but
Mhm.
it's different. It just has a different feel to it. It has this, I don't know what the word is. I'm kind of
Yeah, there's some sort of community about it. There's something with it for me too. And I didn't even know what this was. She sent me before I had her on my podcast.
Mhm.
She sent me the books, and I remember reading, especially her, from volume one and volume two. I read
Yeah.
her chapters, but then I've gone through and read the other ones as well. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then the fact that she invited me to be part of it was that was awesome. And I was like, me? You're talking to me? So that was neat. I mean, that was really neat. And she does a great job of bringing people together, and
Mhm.
she really helped me kind of pull the story out of me because I don't know if I was fighting it when I was trying to create it, but she really helped get that out of me. And I had to be vulnerable a little bit, and that was tough. It was kind of, I'm going to really write that. Tell people that here I am, this middle-aged man, that I'm crying about something, but I did, I had that experience.
Yeah.
So she got that out of me, and I appreciate her for that.
But that's what makes it real, right? And she helped me with the first project I was on too. And yeah, I mean, she said it many times, and she'll say it again many times. You have to stand naked in front of the world.
Yep.
And by doing that, that is when your people come. That is when you draw others towards you. Because if you're just standing there pretending, oh, I'm just this. I mean, you've read my chapter. You don't know me, and you've made assumptions already of who I am, right? And so
Right.
if I don't show up as who I really am, you and others won't know.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. That's the thing I love about this too, is it I really feel like it is giving the glimpse to everybody of who I am.
Hmm.
And people can kind of get glimpses, on social media a little bit here and there and through the podcast. But on the podcast, I'm mostly talking to other people and I give them the stage. I don't really talk about me on my podcast. So this is a
Yeah.
way for me to kind of get, yeah, this is who I am a little more and kind of goes with it a little bit more because I like to know kind of who the hosts are of the shows that I listen to. So I think it's good.
Yeah. So you talked about growth, right? And you talk about growth in your chapter. You said it several times now. What do you feel like your biggest growth moment has been with developing the podcast?
I think it's just the amount of work that goes into it. Looking back on it, it's been 3 years now that I've been doing this podcast. And I think about everything I did at first and where I'm at now. And it's like, it's kind of amazing. I'm like, I've done all those things and just the things I've learned to do. I was not someone who could post on social media every day. And now I do just to kind of post some things about the podcast.
Hmm.
I didn't know anything about audio. I didn't know anything about editing. I didn't know any of that. I had to learn it from step one. But I've loved it so much that it hasn't felt like work. It's felt
Hmm.
more like joy for me. And honestly, the editing part can be a little tedious, especially if you get someone who speaks a lot or, a longer episode or something. But as I sit and edit, I love listening back because I gain something again, like, oh yeah, I remember when she said that. I remember when he said that. And so for me, that's been the biggest thing is just the growth from that. And now I see these friends that I've made. I've got Colleen, for example.
Hmm.
She was episode 99. She was a referral from Jamie Edwards, who wrote the foreword to the book. So that was cool. So I had Jamie first. James like, you might want to talk to Colleen. Might be good for your show. And that's how I met Colleen.
Hmm.
I got a friend in Australia now who's done a guest hosting project with me before. It's just the amount of people and community I have now has been just amazing. It's been awesome.
Yeah. I think my favorite thing of what you just said though was that you're passionate about it. You have a love for it. Because I believe that we can do anything, right? Anything we want to do. We just have to know how to do it. But I also believe that the power behind that is really when you love it. Like when you love what you are doing, that thing, whatever that is for you, explodes. It becomes so much more than you could ever imagine.
100%. And it keeps just little things here and there, being part of this project. Someone else reached out about something else here. An advertiser said, hey, do you want to put an ad on about this here? It's just amazing how much it keeps growing and how much it keeps happening. And because I do love it, I don't feel like it's work. And I get, I'm back in the event industry. I do trade shows and events, and that takes a lot of time, a lot of weekends, a lot of holidays, things like that. And if you're at a show, you got to deal with the things that happen on site. But I still find the time and I still love it to do
Mhm.
this. And so that's the best. Being passionate about it, having something I love is awesome. This part right here, where I actually get to talk to the people, is probably the best part of the whole thing. But sometimes you want to get caught up in some of the other stuff, all the editing and the putting out the posts and things. But then it's like, oh, this is why I do it for this part right here and the things I'm gaining, the lessons I'm learning. It's
Mhm.
been amazing.
Okay. If you were to if you were to guide somebody else into doing this, what are the things you would tell them to really focus on?
I would say being a listener, not worried so much about what you're going to say next, and just start ugly. It's okay to start ugly. I mean, my very first episode was with my brother, and it was terrible. Like we had to do it again because I didn't do something correct on the audio. It was bad, so we recorded again. So just jump in, do it, start a little ugly if you have to, but listen to what they're saying. Don't, worry about jumping ahead of them and think, oh, I got to think of my great next question. Just listen. That's been the biggest thing for me is I found I really love hearing what people actually say. And the episodes or the conversations where I maybe get a little ahead of myself and that's where I kind of maybe I don't know, I just don't feel as in tune with them as much. And so sometimes I need to tell myself like, hey, listen to what they're saying here and enjoy it. I've always got that power as a podcaster. You've always got that power to go back and edit before you release it, unless it's a live thing. But so there's always that ability. So if something happens that you don't like or whatever, you can fix things somewhat, not totally, but
Mhm.
yeah, just be there and listen and enjoy it.
You said this earlier, and I have felt this many times, especially when I started out. This is the end of my second year of doing this, but I was terrified. And it was so silly. I mean, I'm sitting here by myself. No one else is here other than you and I, and we're just having a conversation. But I remember just being so scared of what people would think or how they would judge. And my first interview actually was with my husband for that reason, because I just
There you
needed
go.
that person, right? Yeah. And it was messy and it was just us having a conversation, just like you and I are. But what scared you?
I think it was when I kind of started telling people I was going to do this, kind of got me a little scared. I had the idea that I was going to start it in January of 22. That's kind of the plan. And so this was around, September, October. And I remember starting telling people, I remember mentioning it to like my mom, for example, like, yeah, I'm gonna do a podcast. And it was almost just kind of like, oh, really? Like, yeah, right. Kind of almost like a yeah, not, and that's not what she meant at all, but it just kind of that's kind of how it came from. I'm like, oh, no, I am gonna do this. And I think just the idea that I didn't know how to record, I didn't know what kind of mic to get, I didn't know any of the technical stuff, and that worried me a little bit. But I knew there's ways to figure that out. So I took a course. I purchased a course, and it took me step by step by step. Thank goodness I did that, and that was super helpful. And part of that course was like, hey, you need to get 3 episodes recorded, and just boom, you got to release them. And that's kind of what happened. I just like, okay, I got 3 recorded. Let me go. Let me just do it and push that publish button. That was a little bit scary pushing that button. Like, oh, the first episode's out there. And then I started an Instagram page, and people were super positive and supportive, and it's kind of rolled from there. But yeah, I think just that first step of like, I'm actually going to do this. Let me click on that button, telling people that you're going to do it, and they kind of give you the sideways look like, really? Like, I don't know if they didn't take me serious or what, or if, I know there's hundreds of thousands of millions of podcasts out there. And so I don't know if it was just they thought, oh, he'll just be one of those fly by night and be done. I think what they say that most people don't last past 7 episodes is kind of the stat or something. So 140 plus now or whatever, still rolling. So let's keep
Good
it
for
going
you. Yeah, it takes work and it
for
takes
sure.
determination and it takes grit and you just keep going. And
Yeah,
yeah. So what is the
absolutely.
biggest thing that's changed for you since you started to now?
I think just kind of who I am. I see how much I enjoy this. It brings me joy to where before, and don't get me wrong, the trade show industry has been a great career. I've learned a lot. I've met a lot of great people. It's been good, but I wasn't truly happy there. So this was something for myself that I kind of did for myself. And I struggled with that a little bit because I felt like a little selfish, I guess, that I was doing this for me. I wanted to have something for me. And I've always kind of, I gotta have the job so I can support my family and things like that. That was a little bit of a dilemma I was facing. But just the fact that I have this, it's mine. This is Journey with Jake is mine, and I love it. I love the growth I've got from it, and just the amount of people I've met. I mean, here I am talking to you. It never would have happened if I hadn't done this. So this is just things like that. I look back and like, wow, that was cool. I gotta speak to Carrie. It was awesome. So good stuff like that.
How has your family responded to it? Because I imagine, I mean, I'm married too. My
Mhm.
husband had his COVID story and things and changes in life and careers and stuff. And I know watching him and as a man, you feel like you're supposed to take care of your family. You feel like, you're the only one, even though you've got a partner with you. But how have you seen this impact them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, and that was a challenge because I felt, I don't know if the word's embarrassed. I felt like I was letting my family down, even though they reassured me that everyone's going through it. People were going through worse than I was with this whole COVID thing that happened and getting furloughed and let go of jobs and things like that. But it struck me so hard, but they were always there supporting me. They're always like, no, this isn't you. And so when I started the podcast journey, I think they were relieved that I had something for me. I think it was something that they're like, all right, this is good. And now it's fun because it's so natural now that it's just part of it. My daughter, who's 14, she'll still kind of get a little nervous with stuff I post on Instagram just because she's afraid of what her friends might see or something. So she kind of jokes around with me about that, but she's in that teen phase, and so it's kind of fun. But everyone else has been great. My wife's been super supportive, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm super grateful for them. I think it's helped them realize that, hey, I'm more than just, going out and working for them and coming back, that I can be more than that. And I think it's just developed me as a person a little bit better. I think I've picked up some qualities from some of the people I've talked to, things I've learned. So I think all around it's been a good thing.
That's awesome. I would imagine too that with your kids, it maybe has allowed them to dream a little bit more and think about the things that maybe they really do like or that they really would like to do that maybe are not the traditional in the box kind of jobs.
Without a doubt, growing up for me, it was always you go, you get an education, you get a job, and boom, and that's kind of the way it is. There's more out there than that, and there can be more out there than that, and you can definitely dream a little bit more.
Mhm.
I think my two older sons who are both, married now, and I have two granddaughters. I mean, I think they've even kind of looked like, hey, I can do more than just the normal routine and things like that. So I definitely think that's been a great thing. Is yeah, it doesn't have to just be the Monday through Friday 9 to 5 type of thing. There's way more out there than what it looks like there is.
For sure. Is there anything that you would like to share about the book without really giving things away? Because I do want people to read it. I do people want people to buy it, and I really hope they do because this book, like I said earlier, is outstanding. But is there anything from your chapter that you think is important to share today?
Yeah, I think I may have kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think they're going to get to know me, even people who know me, people who've known me back in, my trade show days prior to COVID, and people who still know me to this day. I think they're going to get a side of me that they didn't really realize possibly. I think they're going to read that and be like, oh, I never realized he thought about this or did that or what was involved, that kind of thing. So I think they'll get to know a side of myself, of Jake, that they didn't really know before. So I think that's what's fun about it is I think even my family is going to be like, whoa. I think some of them are going to be kind of like, dang, I didn't realize, what was going on. And writing that book too, some of the experiences I had, it took me back to those moments and just the way I felt. And, my mind was kind of swirling and just the way things were happening. And obviously people can read it in the book to see kind of what that was. But it took me there, and it was pretty strong. It was pretty powerful when that happened.
Do you want to write? I mean, you mentioned earlier that a lot of other stories have come up, but do you want to do more of this? Do you see yourself writing more?
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. I was thinking, hey, there's probably some other stories. It doesn't necessarily have to be my story of creating a podcast, but it could be other things that have happened, little glimpses into who I am. And I think I would like to do that. I think I would like to put things down a little bit more. I think this has really taught me that I do have more to share. And so
Mhm.
I think I definitely have other stories. And I don't have to feel like, hey, you didn't have some tragic thing happen. It doesn't have to be like that. I've read other stories and they still touch me, and it doesn't have to be some tragic event or some crazy thing that's going on. It can be just little simple life lessons and things that we learn from and grow. And to me, that's what life's all about. I feel like it's just a constant way of keep growing, the in-between moments that you have and just how you have to learn from that and grow from that. And not everything's settled all the time. I'm still not settled over certain things. There's things I still got to work on and improve on and learning to deal with that as well. So I definitely feel like there's more out there for me as far as storytelling goes.
That's great. Do you see the podcast evolving at all where you might do more of just individual conversations versus interviews?
I'm not sure on that yet. I still think it's gonna, for now, I still see it just being an interview type show. I know I've had a couple episodes where I kind of had someone else interview me a couple times. I may do some more things like that. I've thought about maybe doing just some shorter 10 or 15 minutes just of me, maybe kind of recapping a month or something, and maybe lessons I had learned or something like that. So
Mhm.
that's a possibility. I think I might do something like that. But for now, I think I'm gonna. I mean, I love talking to people, and so I'm gonna keep rolling with that.
Absolutely. It's funny. I found in the beginning, I thought, oh, I only want to interview people, even though I was doing some things by myself because I had things I wanted to share. And it's funny how different people get different things out of it, right? Some really love the interviews, and other people are like,
Yeah,
I kind of like it when you're just sitting there sharing whatever's going on. And yeah, so and listening to you today, I'm thinking you've got a lot to say. I mean, you've got stories, and whether you write them or you speak them, they're gonna change people's lives.
I appreciate that. And hearing you say that, it's kind of opening my mind a little bit like, hey, yeah, maybe that is something I need to kind of add to my
Yeah,
to
I
my
mean, it's a
stories.
journey with Jake.
Exactly. That is true. And so, yeah, I might, it's not a bad idea. And it doesn't have to be long. It can be just a short little, 10 or 15 minute, monthly thing. It doesn't have to be weekly like I do with my
Mhm.
guest interviews. And
Yeah.
not a bad idea. Carrie, this is like you're teaching me things. I love this.
No, just fresh ideas, right?
I love
Different,
it.
a
Love it
different
though. That's
lens,
super helpful.
hearing
Yeah.
different things, right?
I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
All right. If you were to leave us with one thing today, just one thing, what would it be?
I think it's a great question. I kind of already talked about being someone who's there to listen. So listening is important, but I kind of want to, the other thing I kind of want to talk about is just be kind to others. I don't know why that means so much to me. Someone like you who's being kind to me today, Colleen who's kind. There's something about people who being kind, getting a random text from somebody of the just being kind and saying thank you. That just means a lot to me. I really appreciate those people who reach out and just say something kind or something nice. So I just think in our world today that's a little chaotic, a little nutty, and we're all going through something. Everyone's dealing with something, whether we think it's big or small or whatever, it doesn't matter. We're dealing with things. Be kind. We don't know what people are going through. So when you see somebody, say please, say thank you, give somebody a hug. I don't know. I just kindness goes a long way for me, and I hope people can share their kindness with others.
Mm, that was perfect. Perfect words to leave us with today. And
Awesome.
I so appreciate you being here. I'm extremely excited for others to read your chapter and really get to know a different side of you, for those that already knew you. For me, I that was how I got to know you first. So chatting
Absolutely.
with you today gave it a whole new spin. So thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I'm excited for people to hear your chapter as well. I read through your chapter. I'm like, wow, it was amazing. So yeah,
uh,
people are going to love it.
Standing naked in the world, right? That was exactly what that
That's the
was.
word. Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Carrie.
All right. Thank you. I hope that you all enjoyed this conversation with Jake. He's an amazing podcaster, and I encourage you all to go listen to his podcast. I also hope that you're going to read his chapter when it comes out next month in Sacred Spaces Volume 3. And if this inspired you or something about the conversation was interesting to you, I just encourage you to like it, share it, subscribe, pass it on to your friends. And above all else, remember that I believe in you and you can manifest the life of your dreams.